When you stop contacting her, something powerful happens beneath the surface of what most people can see. Relationships, connections, even casual exchanges of attention, all carry with them an invisible current of energy. That current flows strongest when one person is consistently reaching out, checking in, giving their presence freely, and investing in the interaction. The moment you decide to cut that off, to pull your energy back into yourself, you create a shift in the dynamic that cannot be ignored. She may not recognize it consciously at first, but she will feel it. The rhythm changes, and it is the absence of that rhythm that begins to echo in her world. Suddenly, she is no longer receiving the constant validation, the steady comfort of knowing you are there whenever she wishes to acknowledge you. That absence is where the shift in power begins. The human mind adapts quickly to what is consistent. When someone shows up repeatedly, answers the phone every time, responds to every message, or fills in the gaps when silence would otherwise exist, the brain begins to treat it as expected. It feels normal, predictable, almost guaranteed. But the moment that guarantee disappears, the same brain begins to resist. It searches for answers. It begins to demand explanation. That's when you notice the subtle shift. The one who once felt in control now feels an imbalance they cannot quite describe. Silence is not just nothingness, it is a mirror, and it reflects back the truth of how important your presence actually was. When you stop contacting her, she notices the energy you once provided. Maybe it was the encouragement you gave, the attention you poured in, or the steady assurance that you were available whenever she wanted. Without you doing it, she becomes aware of just how much it mattered. Think about this. People don't often see the value of what they have when it's right in front of them, because constant access creates the illusion of permanence. But when that access is gone, the mind replays it, it reimagines it, and it tries to recreate what is now missing. That is when she realizes the shift is real. This shift in power does not mean you have taken something from her. It means you have reclaimed something for yourself. The truth is, energy given freely without balance creates dependency. You may not have noticed it, but every call, every text, every effort you made was tilting the scale. She was receiving without necessarily needing to invest equally. When you pull back, the scale begins to balance itself. That balance is uncomfortable for someone who has grown used to leaning on your effort. She will feel that discomfort in subtle ways. Maybe she hesitates before opening her phone. Maybe she checks if you're online. Maybe she wonders why the notifications that used to come so often are suddenly missing. The very air around her feels different because your attention is no longer feeding her world in the same way. Power in relationships is not about dominance, it is about influence. Whoever can withdraw and remain centered, calm, and unshaken, naturally holds influence over the dynamic. By not contacting her, you demonstrate that you are not bound by the need for her validation. You are not chasing, you are not begging, you are not trying to force an outcome. This changes how she sees you. You are no longer the one supplying constant reassurance. Instead, you have become the one who can choose. That choice, whether she realizes it or not, alters the balance of attraction. She may feel it as confusion at first. Questions begin to rise in her mind. Why hasn't he reached out? Did something happen? Has he lost interest? Did I do something wrong? Each of those questions carries with it the subtle recognition that she is no longer in control of the flow of attention. And as those questions multiply, the shift deepens. It is not anger that she feels. It is curiosity mixed with unease. She wants to solve the puzzle of your silence. In that silence, she becomes more aware of her own patterns. If she took you for granted, she will feel the absence like a void. If she relied on your consistent pursuit, she will now realize it is missing. If she assumed you would always be there, she begins to question that assumption. This is why the shift in power is so profound. It does not come from you doing more. It comes from you doing less. It comes from stepping back, holding your own ground, and allowing her to see what life looks like without your constant presence. At a deeper level, the human heart is drawn to what it cannot fully possess. When you were always available, there was no mystery. There was no sense of challenge. But now with your silence, you have reintroduced an element of mystery that awakens something in her psychology. She is reminded that you are not simply a fixture in her life. You are a person with autonomy, with choices, with the ability to walk away. That realization demands her attention in a way that constant presence never could. This is why the shift in power is undeniable. You didn't need to raise your voice, you didn't need to explain yourself, and you didn't need to push her to see your worth. By simply stepping back and withholding the energy you once poured into her, you have altered the entire foundation of the connection. She feels it in the silence, she feels it in the absence, and she feels it in the recognition that what she once had easy access to is no longer guaranteed. It is in that exact space that the true dynamic of the relationship reveals itself. When you stop contacting her, the very first spark that begins to flicker in her mind is curiosity. Human beings are naturally wired to wonder about what they cannot see or understand. The moment you withdraw your presence, the mind of the other person begins to search for explanations. She is used to a certain rhythm, a certain pattern, A certain expectation that you would reach out, check in, and remind her of your presence. When that pattern suddenly disappears, the void left behind does not remain empty. Instead, it is filled with questions, with possibilities, with scenarios that her imagination starts to create. Curiosity is not passive, it is active energy, and when directed at you, it can be one of the most powerful forces you awaken in her. She may not immediately show it on the surface, but internally she starts to notice. She checks her phone a little more often, scrolling through the notifications, half expecting to see your name pop up. She reopens her messages, seeing the last text you sent, replaying the words, wondering why you haven't followed it up with something new. She notices the absence more than she ever noticed the presence, because absence leaves space for thought. When you were always available, always showing up, her curiosity had no room to grow. Everything was predictable, and predictability is the enemy of wonder. But the silence you create now begins to feed her thoughts in ways she cannot ignore. Curiosity works like a seed planted in the soil of the mind. At first, it is small, almost unnoticeable, but it grows with every passing moment of an unanswered expectation. She might think, maybe he's busy. Then hours pass, and the thought evolves. Why hasn't he checked in yet? He usually does. A little longer, and it becomes, what is he doing right now? Who is he with? Has something changed? The mind does not tolerate uncertainty well. It craves resolution. And when there is no resolution, curiosity intensifies into obsession. Without realizing it, she has turned her focus toward you, even though you are not actively seeking her attention. There is something magnetic about mystery. When someone cannot easily predict your behavior, they start to assign value to understanding you. By stepping back and choosing silence, you are no longer predictable. You are no longer the man whose actions can be guessed before they happen. Instead, you become a puzzle, and puzzles demand to be solved. That puzzle is what ignites curiosity in her. She wants to know what shifted in you. She wonders if it is intentional, if it means something about her, or if it means something about the way you see the relationship. That wondering is not casual. It begins to tug at her emotions. Think about how people are drawn to limited editions, rare opportunities, or scarce resources. It is not always the abundance of something that creates desire, but its rarity. Your silence creates scarcity. Before, she had an abundance of your presence. She knew where to find you. She knew she could count on your call, your message, your check-in. But now she cannot. That uncertainty creates a new perception. Maybe she misjudged how much control she had over your attention. That doubt alone heightens her curiosity to levels she cannot fully suppress. Her thoughts will not always be rational in this state. One moment she may feel irritated, wondering why you are not contacting her as you did before. The next, she may feel intrigued, imagining that you must be deeply focused on something important, something beyond her. And then she may feel unsettled, wondering if she has somehow lost the place she once held in your world. Each of those thoughts feeds into curiosity. Each unanswered question loops back to the same focal point you. Your silence has made you the center of her thoughts without you lifting a finger. Curiosity is also tied to fear of loss. The human heart is far more curious about what it could be losing than what it already has. When you were constantly present, she never had to question if she had you. But when you step back, she begins to wonder if she is losing something valuable. That fear amplifies the curiosity, making her imagine scenarios, replay conversations, and analyze the smallest details. Did your tone shift the last time you spoke? Did she say something that might have pushed you away? Was there a moment she overlooked where you showed you were dissatisfied? Her mind searches for clues because curiosity demands answers. At times, she may even project this curiosity into action. She might post something on social media just to see if you will notice. She might subtly reach out, pretending it's casual, but really testing if you'll respond. She may ask mutual friends if you've been busy, trying to piece together what is happening in your world. Every one of these actions stems from the seed of curiosity that your silence has planted. It is no longer about routine communication. It has become about discovery. She is on a quest to understand what your withdrawal means and whether it says something about her own value in your eyes. The power of curiosity is that it grows in silence. It cannot thrive when answers are readily available. That is why when you were always contacting her, she never had to wonder. But now, with each passing day of silence, the questions expand. She may try to distract herself, but even in distraction, the thought lingers. Why hasn't he reached out? That single question becomes the echo that shapes her emotional state, pulling her back to thoughts of you even when she tries to move on. By removing your constant presence, you are no longer giving her everything she wants to know. Instead, you are giving her the space to want to know more. That shift awakens her natural curiosity, and once awakened, it will not let her rest easily until she has some sense of resolution. She will keep replaying, keep wondering, keep feeling the pull of questions unanswered, because curiosity, once sparked, is one of the strongest forces that drives human behavior. When you stop contacting her, you unknowingly hold up a mirror that forces her to see herself in ways she may have avoided. For as long as you were the one constantly reaching out, checking in, and making the effort, the spotlight was never really on her. It was easy for her to fall into the rhythm of simply receiving your energy without questioning how much she was contributing in return. But the moment you step back, the moment your presence and your pursuit are no longer there, she is left alone with her own actions, her own choices, and the way she treated the connection. That silence becomes a mirror, and in that reflection, she sees herself more clearly than ever before. This is the part most people underestimate: how much self-awareness grows in absence. When she no longer hears from you, she starts to ask herself questions she never bothered with before. Did I take him for granted? Was I really appreciating what he gave me? Why did I assume he would always be there? These questions come not because you are pointing them out, but because the mirror of silence forces her to notice the imbalance that once existed. For the first time, she cannot rely on your presence to cover up her neglect. She is confronted with the truth of how she acted when you were the one always giving. The mirror effect is uncomfortable because it strips away illusions. When you were always available, she may have convinced herself that she was the one in control, that your attention was something she didn't need to worry about losing. But when you stop contacting her, that illusion shatters. The reflection she sees now reveals that your value was greater than she admitted to herself. She realizes that your effort was not automatic, it was a choice, and the fact that you are no longer making that choice forces her to reflect on why. That reflection is not always flattering. She may begin replaying the interactions in her head, searching for moments where she could have responded differently. The time she ignored your message, thinking it didn't matter because you would message again. The time she dismissed your gesture, assuming there would always be another one. The time she was cold, distant, or distracted because she assumed you weren't going anywhere. The mirror does not lie. It shows her these memories and asks her to face the possibility that she overlooked your worth. That realization can sting deeply because it exposes how casual she was with something meaningful. The mirror effect also forces her to confront her own emotional patterns. If she grew used to receiving attention without giving much in return, she now sees how unbalanced that was. If she tested you, pushed your patience, or played games, she now wonders whether those actions are the reason you step back. She questions whether she created the very distance she now feels. Silence makes her confront herself in ways constant reassurance never could. It is no longer about you explaining your worth. It is about her seeing it for herself. This reflection is not limited to the relationship with you. Often, it opens a deeper recognition about how she operates in all areas of her life. She may realize she has a habit of taking people for granted, of assuming effort will always be given to her without consequence. She may see how her need for validation blinded her to the value of genuine connection. She may recognize that she avoids vulnerability, and that avoidance has cost her something real. In other words, the mirror you hold up by stepping back doesn't just show her the role she played with you. It shows her the person she has been becoming. That realization can be powerful enough to shake her at her core. At the same time, the mirror effect does not always lead to guilt alone. It also awakens longing. When she reflects and sees the gap between how she treated you and what she truly wanted from you, it stirs emotions she cannot easily suppress. She may feel regret for not showing more care. She may feel the ache of wanting back the attention she once dismissed. Reflection brings clarity, and clarity often creates longing for what was lost. That longing is amplified because she knows she cannot demand it back from you. You are no longer handing it to her freely. The longer the silence continues, the clearer the reflection becomes. She can no longer distract herself with excuses like, "He'll come around," or "always does." Each day without your message or call shows her that things are no longer the same. That truth forces her to look at the relationship as it really was, not as she imagined it to be when she held the upper hand. The mirror reveals both the beauty of what you once brought into her life and the negligence with which she treated it. Both realities exist side by side, and she cannot avoid seeing them. This is the power of pulling back. It removes the noise and leaves only truth. Without your constant effort to maintain the connection, the relationship is exposed in its raw form. She sees clearly whether she was giving anything of substance or simply enjoying what you offered. She sees whether her actions aligned with the words she may have spoken. And most of all, she sees that your worth was not defined by her recognition, but by the value you carried with or without her. The mirror effect is a silent teacher. It doesn't argue, it doesn't persuade, it doesn't beg, it simply reflects. And in that reflection, she is forced to acknowledge her role, her choices, and her mistakes. She realizes that the person she became when you were reaching out all the time is not the person she wants to see when she looks in the mirror now. That discomfort, that recognition, that unfiltered truth becomes impossible for her to ignore. When you stop contacting her, a wave of emotions begins to stir inside her, and that stirring is far more powerful than any words you could have spoken. Silence is not just the absence of sound, it is a presence of its own. It has weight, it has texture, it has an intensity that speaks directly to the heart. In that silence, emotions that were once dormant begin to rise to the surface. She may not expect it, and she may not even understand it at first, but the emotional stirring is real, and it grows stronger with every hour, every day, and every unanswered moment. At first, the emotion might be subtle, almost unnoticeable. She might feel a small twinge of confusion when she realizes that you have not reached out the way you normally would. That confusion quickly shifts into curiosity, and curiosity soon awakens something deeper. An ache, a tension, an unsettled feeling that she cannot easily name. She feels your absence in ways she didn't anticipate. She notices the quiet where there used to be a message. She notices the space where there used to be a call. And she notices the emptiness in her daily rhythm, where your presence once fit so naturally. That small shift grows into an emotional wave, and it keeps pulling at her in ways she cannot ignore. The human heart does not like voids. When something is missing, the heart searches for it, longs for it, aches for it. Your silence creates that void. She may try to brush it off, telling herself you're busy or distracted, but as the hours stretch, her emotions begin to contradict her rationalizations. She feels it not only in her mind, but in her body. The slight restlessness when she checks her phone and sees no new message from you. The sinking sensation when she scrolls through her notifications and your name isn't there. The subtle unease when she realizes the pattern has changed. Her emotions are alerting her to something her logic cannot dismiss. This stirring is not always comfortable. In fact, it often feels like a storm inside her. She may feel longing one moment, frustration the next, and a pang of regret right after. Longing because she misses the attention she once took for granted. Frustration because she doesn't understand why you have pulled back. Regret because she wonders whether she contributed to your silence by not valuing you enough. These emotions swirl together, creating a cocktail of feelings that leave her unsettled, restless, and deeply aware of your absence. Emotions, once awakened, rarely stay quiet. They demand expression. That is why she might find herself thinking about you more than she intends to, replaying conversations, revisiting old memories, scrolling through your social media, or even considering reaching out just to break the tension. She may not admit it openly, but internally, she is being pulled by the emotions your silence has stirred. The more she resists them, the stronger they seem to grow, because emotions are not meant to be suppressed. They are meant to be acknowledged. The most powerful part of this stirring is the fear that accompanies it. Fear of loss, fear of being forgotten, fear of no longer holding the place she once held in your life. Fear is a powerful emotional driver, and when combined with longing, it becomes nearly impossible to ignore. She may start to ask herself questions she doesn't want to face. What if he's moving on? What if someone else has his attention now? What if I've lost him completely? Each of those questions amplifies the storm inside her, making the emotional stirring impossible to quiet down. What makes this emotional stirring so profound is that it comes from within her. You are not pushing, you are not demanding, you are not trying to manipulate her feelings. It is her own mind, her own heart, her own spirit creating the emotional response to your silence. That makes it more powerful than anything you could have tried to create directly. When emotions rise from within, they are deeply felt, deeply personal, and impossible to escape. She cannot argue with herself. She cannot dismiss what she feels, and she cannot simply turn it off. Over time, this emotional stirring becomes a teacher. It shows her what your presence truly meant. She begins to realize that the comfort she felt when you were consistent was not just convenience, it was connection. She sees that the reassurance your messages brought was not just habit, it was significance. She feels the difference between having you near and having you absent, and that feeling teaches her something she may have overlooked for far too long. Even if she tries to distract herself, even if she buries herself in work, friends, or other interests, the emotions you stirred by your silence do not simply disappear. They wait beneath the surface, ready to rise again when she slows down, when she is alone, when she checks her phone in the quiet of the night and still finds no message from you. That is when the emotional stirring feels most intense. When she has no distractions left, only the reality of her thoughts and the emotions they bring. The stirring is not just about missing you, it is about realizing how much you mattered. It is about facing the truth that your attention carried more weight than she acknowledged. It is about understanding that your presence filled a space in her life that now feels empty without you. Those emotions are raw, powerful, and undeniable. They remind her that silence is not neutral. It is a force that awakens feelings that words alone could never awaken. When you stop contacting her, something remarkable takes place. The connection becomes a test of value. All the small gestures, the endless pursuit, the consistent communication you once offered are no longer present, and that absence leaves only one thing for her to face: the truth of how much she values what you brought into her life. It is in this space that the test begins, because your silence requires her to step forward if the relationship truly matters to her. No more leaning on your effort, no more assuming your energy will keep things alive. Now she must reveal whether the bond was meaningful enough for her to invest or whether she was only comfortable receiving without giving back. This test is not one you announce or explain. It happens naturally the moment you pull back. When you were always present, she didn't have to question the value of what you offered. It was simply there, like the air she breathed. But when you withdraw, she is forced to recognize the difference between habit and value. A habit is something she expects without thought. Value is something she feels deeply when it is gone. That distinction is where the real measure of her feelings begins. At first, she may resist the realization. She might tell herself, "It's nothing, he'll come back around." She might try to dismiss the silence as temporary. But as time passes, the test grows stronger because silence has a way of revealing truths that constant noise hides. She begins to ask herself whether she is comfortable living without your presence. She wonders if she is willing to let go of the connection entirely, or if it matters enough for her to put in effort herself. This is the turning point where her actions, or lack of them, reveal everything. If she values you, if the relationship held true meaning for her, she will find a way to step forward. She will send a message, she will call, she will create an excuse to reach out, because she cannot bear the thought of letting silence erase what you once shared. It might come in subtle ways at first, liking a photo, replying to an old message, or dropping a casual line just to test the waters. But beneath the surface, those actions are not casual at all. They are her way of showing that she values your presence enough to move from passivity into action. On the other hand, if she does nothing, if the silence stretches on without any response from her, it reveals something equally important. It shows that her investment was shallow, that her interest was not strong enough to motivate action, that the connection mattered more to you than it did to her. While this realization may sting, it is a gift of clarity. The test of value is never about forcing someone to care. It is about observing whether they care enough on their own. The beauty of this test lies in its simplicity. You do not need to demand answers. You do not need to push for proof. You do not need to fight for validation. By stepping back, you create a natural environment where the truth rises on its own. You learn whether she is capable of giving or if she only knows how to take. You see whether her affection is genuine or conditional. You discover whether she truly respected the connection or merely enjoyed the comfort of it. This test also reveals her courage. Many people find it easy to receive love but difficult to express it. They hide behind pride, behind games, behind the fear of vulnerability. But when the silence grows heavy and she feels the weight of potentially losing you, she must decide whether she is brave enough to put her pride aside and reach out. That moment of choice is the real measure of her value for the connection. If she lets pride win, she loses. If she chooses to be vulnerable, she passes the test by proving that you mean more to her than her own comfort zone. At a deeper level, the test of value highlights something essential about relationships. Effort must flow both ways. One-sided giving creates imbalance, and imbalance cannot sustain itself forever. By withdrawing your constant effort, you allow the natural balance to be tested. If she steps in to fill the space, the connection grows stronger and healthier because it shows that both sides are capable of giving. If she does not, the imbalance becomes undeniable, and you are free to move forward knowing that the weight of the relationship was never truly shared. This test also has the power to awaken her own realization of your worth. She may not have fully grasped what you meant to her when you were always present, but your absence teaches her in a way words never could. She begins to see that your attention was not ordinary, your consistency was not common, and your effort was not something every man would give. She realizes that what you provided had a rare value, and that realization may drive her to step forward in ways she never did before. Every moment of silence is part of the test. Every day you do not reach out is a question posed to her heart. Does this matter enough for you to invest? Her response, or her lack of one, is the answer. The test of value does not lie, it does not flatter, and it does not exaggerate. It simply shows the truth. And while the truth may sometimes be painful, it is also liberating, because it frees you from illusion and shows you exactly where you stand. When you stop contacting her, the silence unveils something far more powerful than words ever could: the revelation of truth. For so long, the connection may have felt like a blur, a mixture of gestures, routines, and expectations, but when your presence is no longer guaranteed, clarity begins to emerge. In those quiet moments where she once would have seen your message or heard your voice, she now faces the raw reality of where she stands in your life and where you stood in hers. This revelation is not something you announce, nor is it something you try to force upon her. It is something that naturally rises out of the space your absence creates. The truth has a way of revealing itself in silence because silence removes distractions. When you were always reaching out, always giving, always showing up, she could ignore her own lack of effort. She could distract herself with the comfort of knowing you would keep the connection alive. But once that safety net is gone, the truth comes into sharp focus. She realizes whether she truly valued you or simply valued the convenience of having you there. She sees whether her interest was genuine or whether it only existed because you kept feeding it. Silence strips away the illusions and leaves only what is real. This revelation is not always gentle. Sometimes it feels like a harsh awakening. She may feel the sting of realizing she took you for granted, the ache of knowing she overlooked the depth of what you offered, or the guilt of seeing how little she invested in comparison to what you gave. Other times, the truth comes with a sense of regret. Regret for missed opportunities, regret for unspoken words, regret for treating your effort as if it would last forever. The absence you create becomes a mirror reflecting back the consequences of her actions, and she cannot escape that truth no matter how much she tries to rationalize it. But this revelation does not belong only to her. It belongs to you as well. By stepping back and observing what she does in the silence, you also gain clarity. You see whether she reaches out or whether she lets the connection fade away. You see whether she chooses to fight for what you had or whether she was only ever there to receive. Her actions in the space you create tell you more about her true feelings than any words she might have spoken when you were the one doing all the work. The revelation of truth is mutual. You learn about her, and she learns about herself. What makes this truth so powerful is that it cannot be faked. Effort cannot be disguised when the balance shifts. If she values you, it will show in what she does when you are no longer giving. If she does not, it will show in her silence, her inaction, her indifference. The truth is revealed not through promises, not through excuses, but through actions, or the lack of them. This is why pulling back is so transformative. It creates the perfect environment for authenticity to emerge. For her, the revelation might feel unsettling. She may begin to recognize that your presence carried far more weight than she admitted. She may notice how different her days feel without you there to fill the gaps. She may come to understand that you were not just another man giving attention. You were someone with substance, someone who cared, someone who chose to invest when others did not. That realization can hit hard because it shows her the contrast between what you offered and what she assumed. The truth becomes undeniable. She either lost something valuable or risked losing it by not stepping forward sooner. At the same time, the revelation of truth also gives her a choice. Once she sees clearly, she can no longer pretend. She must decide whether to step up, to invest, to show you through her actions that the connection matters, or to let the silence stretch on and prove that she never valued it deeply. The truth demands a decision, and whichever path she chooses will reveal exactly where she stands. There is no gray area once the silence has done its work. For you, the truth that emerges gives freedom. You no longer have to guess how she feels, no longer have to question whether her interest was real, no longer have to wonder if you were wasting your effort. Her behavior in your absence tells you everything. If she reaches out, you know the connection had depth. If she doesn't, you know her investment was shallow. Either way, the truth sets you free from illusion and allows you to move forward with clarity and certainty. The revelation of truth also rebalances the dynamic. When you were always contacting her, the truth was clouded because your effort created a false sense of stability. She may have assumed the bond was stronger than it really was because you kept it alive. But when you stop, the foundation is exposed. If it is strong, it will endure and even grow stronger as she begins to contribute. If it is weak, it will collapse under its own emptiness. Either outcome is the truth, and the truth is always better than living in confusion or false hope. This revelation is not meant to punish her, nor is it meant to inflate your pride. It is simply a natural consequence of silence. When the noise disappears, when the constant pursuit ends, when the energy you once poured into the connection is reclaimed, what remains is pure, unfiltered truth. It may bring her regret, it may bring her longing, it may even bring her to action. For you, it brings clarity, peace, and understanding. Silence has a way of speaking louder than words ever could, and in its echo, the truth always comes to the surface.